I want to just briefly touch upon education because there's two forms of education, isn't there? There's one where it's in a classroom, a teacher who predominantly has learnt from books and passed down like knowledge, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, from other people. So it doesn't really change. You know, it's like everything's just copy, repeat, copy, repeat. It's lack of originality uh, for the most part. Or you learn from experience, and it is incredibly original. My train of thought is personally, I don't do well as a student. I don't do well in terms of I struggle to focus only because I don't like things being so permanent. I don't like the fact that there's very little wiggle room for interpretation a lot of time when it comes to education. So a lot of time, if this is the rule, this is the rule, and it's like, no, 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 no. Who established that rule? Oh, someone who came before. This is the established rule. This is how this works. I don't do well with rules. So personally, when it comes to education, it's something I've always had trouble with throughout my life. And I'm someone who I've been through an awful lot, so I can interpret for myself. And I'm self-taught in many things. Now, when I say self-taught in many things, there's some things I have learnt from others, but it's like some people have just helped me, like when I've needed a bit of support here and there, but not necessarily in a classroom. It's really just people firsthand, you know. Um, I'll show examples in a little while, but I just want to touch upon school in general. And then, like for instance, to establish this, just to show I'm not. Obviously, you can see the books there, but I'm not what I would call low intellect. I just prefer to learn from experience personally. So of course, finished school. I passed my college course. Years later, I decided I was going to try and get a degree just because I thought that'd be a good goal. That was before my book, by the way. You know, so that was when I was trying to establish goals, life goals, and I thought a university degree would be pretty cool. So I passed that course. That was going to be a computer sciences, degree. Bachelor of the Arts. I can't remember exactly what it was now. Anyway, so I passed. It was like 360 points is to get the degree. I got this course was 60 points. So it was a substantial contribution towards attaining the degree, and I passed it. So that was 60 points tick. I got that, and I passed that course. That was computer programming. It was quite technical. It actually drove me to madness. It was boring. It wasn't really what I thought I was walking into. It wasn't for me. And then later on, about 10 years later, 12 years later, whatever it was, I've gone and studied for an English degree. Again, at that point, though, I'd already done 4 books, I think it was, and I really wasn't passionate about what I was actually learning because it wasn't going to add to my repertoire. That's the whole point. I've already done 4 books at this point. What am I going to learn? So I thought, okay, this could be cool. This could be interesting. And it literally was just citing quoted quotes. So it's like citing passages from other works. That was literally the whole point of this course. And I've spoken about it before. That frustrated me. I'm learning about Cleopatra. I'm learning about Queen Elizabeth. I'm learning about the Virgin Mary. These are topics of interest to me. I'm like genuinely interested, from so many angles. It just piqued my curiosity, and it was moving so swiftly every week, and I just didn't understand why. Like, why are we going so fast? These are good quality topics, and then we're moving over to like Mozart, Beethoven, and I don't know if it was Picasso, but it's like this is boring as shit to me. I'm not into that sort of stuff. You know, I'm more interested in people of substance, which is what I would consider the Virgin Mary and Cleopatra to be. Very significant in history. I'm not interested in the arts. You know, peering into the life of an artist doesn't interest me at all. And peering into the life of a musician, as well established as they are, it's like that does not pique my interest. That does not pique any curiosity in me. People who had an actual contribution on the world, that really does. Um, so I wanted to really, I just wanted to stay fixated on that learning. But again, alas, it was just moving, and I was working at the time, so it's all these other things. I was doing my other books, and it reached a point where it weren't for me. And I've had problems even throughout school, for instance, where I just never concentrated. I didn't like it. Um, Even like I say, when I finished the college course, I had me and a few of my friends at college. We had to actually, after this course finished, we actually stayed behind for I think about an extra month, um, because we hadn't finished all the work. We still had to get some work. We had to go to the college library and finish up the assignments that just needed finished. So we wasn't far off finishing the course, but we had to get a few assignments. You know, for me, it's a lack of concentration on it. I just switch off. So I'm like I say, so I'm someone who's more of a practical thinker. I garner information from experience, not from textbooks. So doesn't mean you can't obviously read other people's work, but you're sitting in the classroom listening to someone drone on for ages. That's effectively. I just find that study, it often goes in directions that's unnecessary. I think it's convoluted. I think it's a long process, and it's hard to absorb the information when it's so drawn out. That's how I personally feel. And I think an awful lot. I mean, you see it yourself. I mean, if anyone just uses their eyes, you could have a classroom dedicated, let's say it's history. Let's say the topic's the Spanish Armada. I'm just saying something off the top of my head. And maybe you've got to learn that, and they're going to go into the ins and outs of this Spanish Armada, and it'll take classroom after classroom, lesson after lesson, and it'll be a long-winded process. Or you can watch a documentary on it, and they'll cover it within quick succession. And it's like, what information, like, I'm not going to say what other people can absorb, but something like that, I'm going to absorb that far more than a teacher droning on to me personally, you know? So there's obviously ways that I think that people can learn. But for me, I learn more from practical experience. So everything I know is from myself. And I don't necessarily think someone in a classroom is more qualified than me to talk on something when they're learning it just from a book themselves, which has been passed down by another teacher, by another teacher, by another teacher. So the idea then is that that person's then more experienced than you or maybe they're more qualified to interpret and discuss and teach. But I don't necessarily think that way at all. It's the same way you might, I've been driving since I was 18, 19. I can't remember the exact age now. I think it's 2002. It's now 2025. I'm 42. So I've been driving over 20 years. So I consider myself a pretty good driver, actually really good driver. I'm very observant. I don't hinder traffic. I drive at a reasonable speed. I'm not like crazy speed, but I'm not like, but I'm very observant and my stopping distance is good. Anyway, so I consider myself a really good driver. But because I don't operate, I don't do it for as a work vocation. A lot of people would consider a taxi driver a professional driver. And I've been in the car with taxi drivers, and I think they're not the best at all, and it's quite alarming. But again, this is where people pigeonhole people. For some reason, others are considered more qualified. In what way? Anyway, how this comes to be is my daughter's last year of high school. She's already planning for college, the thing she wants to study. And she did mention just wanted to learn web design, of something. Even I'm surprised she does, because it's not something she's ever suggested, and it's not the main thing she wants to study. It's not really for me to suggest not for me to discuss her ambitions. But when she mentioned the web design, for instance, and this is where it just threw me off a little bit. I thought, okay, okay, it'll be funny if she doesn't want to learn from me, then who does? So it just made me start thinking, well, I can't even. I don't really care, to be honest. I'll just keep myself. I can keep my time for me. But she mentioned a desire to learn web design, and I said I could teach you that in like a month. I could teach you to do websites in a month. It's no point saying something stupid, quick succession. It'll take a little bit of time because she's probably busy doing other stuff as well. But I can easily do it because I'm self-taught with web design. I didn't go to a classroom, but I've met people along the way. Maybe someone from school that I bumped into years later online, and they've helped me with something. Because that happened. There was someone to help me with. A lot of people, if they know web design, they might know of Drupal. And I don't know if it's still used widely anymore, but I know like the American government websites were run by Drupal, similar to WordPress, but a little bit more complicated. And that was actually a skill, and I could do Drupal. Now I haven't done it in years, and it was quite tricky, and there were problems sometimes. Like things, it's really when there was a problem, it was like always a hard thing to solve. That's the problem with it. WordPress become more popular, but even before WordPress and Drupal, I was creating it with the HTML. And CSS. So CSS would be the color coding and all the aesthetics. HTML would be the groundwork, the foundations for the website. I would look, because I was self-taught. It wasn't a case of I've learned from the basics up. I've learned in the middle of. So effectively, I fine tuned the process, so I can edit HTML. I can't write it from scratch, whereas obviously some people can. Nowadays, people using AI for everything. I don't like AI. I don't even touch it. Um, the only thing I ever use AI for is because I use Grammarly. When I do my books, I use Grammarly to help me edit the books rather than hire someone, a convoluted process I can't afford. That's the only time I've ever used AI, is literally um, to help with grammar. And then it's my decision on what parts I want to use, because I don't always agree with it. It's not automated for me at all. I go through everything like a fine tooth comb. But AI in general, I think, is lazy and sloppy otherwise, so I don't really have an interest in any of that. So anyway, there was one called Google, I think it was called Google Pages a long time ago. And I think that's when I was studying my university course. It was around that time. And it's very outdated, very outdated. In fact, I probably could provide an idea of what the website, because I can't show an example now because that website's completely gone at that. I'm not sure if this website, because there's a website that I feel looks similar, or at least it did. I think it's upgraded now. So if it's upgraded, I can't show it. Yeah, okay, this would be the perfect website. It's a place where I used to buy keys. You can get like Windows keys, for it relatively cheap. It's legitimate. But you can get key codes. Yeah. Anyway, but this is just an example of the sort of website I could make back in the day. This is like my original one, the concept. And it wasn't with WordPress and it wasn't with Drupal or anything like that. And I knew how to do all the editing, and I'd make the boxes, because I was always into gaming, so I was always trying to make gaming websites or my own personal website for me. Anyway, I know we're just talking about websites here, but it might be interesting to people. I don't know. But what the point is, I want to show people what I could do, and the fact that I was offering to help my daughter for free, and she didn't want my help. Literally said, "I'd rather learn from a teacher," and it's like, okay. Straight away, I'm thinking, how rude. But at the same time, I'm thinking, saves me a load of time. I don't mind whatever. Um, yeah. Anyway, so look, I know she's learned things off me as through life, but you just think when you can share a skill, and someone doesn't want you to, it's like, oh well, whatever. And that's where I just got me thinking that I find that quite interesting that by learning from a teacher, people feel they're going to gain more knowledge, and it's like, in what way? The lesson she wants to learn, for instance, the study she's going to do at college, isn't specifically web design. Maybe they'll cover it briefly, but I don't think it's going to be anything of substance. And yet, I could have taught her before she even reaches college. But whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm not someone that will keep offering my services because like my time gets valuable, and if I'm doing something else, that's tough. You had the opportunity, and not to be spiteful, but it's just like, if that's what you want, that's what you want. But it just got me thinking about how people put teachers specifically on a pedestal. Like I was thinking about my own career, for instance, if I was to do something, if I had a different life and I wasn't in the path I'm on, what would I do? There's two jobs that come to mind. I could have been a teacher. I think I had that, and it's not because she said that. I've always felt that I could have been a teacher, or I think a lawyer. I think I could have done. I think I could have done well in courtrooms. But I'm not interested in going any of those directions now. Like no, 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 no. But yeah, I just want to show the examples now of my websites. I'm not saying they're brilliant, because again, I've become a bit lazy as time's gone on in terms of updating them, wanting to invest time in making them better. I'm sort of like, I'm happy just to do what I do. But fundamentally, I can create websites. So nowadays, I use WordPress. It just streamlines the process. Now, WordPress, you do sort of make sense to have a theme, which you can pay a premium price for a decent theme, or you can use a basic theme. Either way, you're going to have to do customization with it. Either way, you're going to have to learn the fundamentals. They do make it easy for people who don't know any coding, but I prefer to use the coding a lot of the time, sometimes, depending on the theme I'm using. So, for instance, they put a lot of branding on it. Like if someone created the theme initially, they like to plaster that all over the place. So I remove that, but you have to go into the coding. You have to go deep into the coding where they try to hide it. And I'll sit there and try to figure it out. You can use developer tools as well on your web browser. Again, these are things I know what to look for. So, I have a certain knowledge that I think would have been helpful. I have my own hosting package, so which I pay every month, which is hosting on a server, and then there's a company that the front end of that, so I can literally add new websites whenever I want. Start unlimited websites. you know, I can't remember how much storage I've got, but I've got an awful lot. I can make unlimited emails, so you can make like, so many emails off of the web domain. So where my name, like my main one is stephenbradleywaters.com, I can do author at stephenbradleywaters.com. I can do admin. You know, you can do sales. You can do contact at. You know, so many variations. You can do whatever you want, and then you can forward it to your own personal email. So these are things I could have taught. You know, even just that. Let's have a look at the websites, and we'll see what like. This isn't my one, this one, but the other two are. We'll just show an example, really. So this is CJSCD keys. I used to use these before I moved to a different website to buy key codes. Effectively, it's a cheaper way to acquire licenses. It's legitimate. They are legitimate things. But what I wanted to show really was how boxy it is with this. Like, it's all very boxy, and that's literally what it was with mine. I'm surprised they haven't updated it. It's so out of date. It's unreal. Yeah, but that's how I was creating them before, without WordPress, without Drupal. Unfortunately, I can't show an example of Drupal because I've long since moved my websites away from that. I'll show my current website. This is one I make with WordPress. Look, I've got a little bit lazy, but I can do it. You know, I do it. I do all the I've made different colors on the sides here. You know, I focused on a little bit of information, a photo, and I wanted to promote my YouTube. But I've gotten too mad with videos. And I wanted to stream it. I just wanted it to be basic rather than it be something that's so integrated with different blog articles and all that stuff. I just wanted something more central to make it easy for people to see everything I'm doing at a given moment. And I feel I've achieved that. So I think if someone new was to come across my content, at least they can get an idea of who I am. That's kind of the whole point of this personal website. Yeah, it can be improved, and maybe I will later on. But you know, as on a basic level, I could have shown her how I created this and how you can do it and how you can customize it. And then when you come across a problem, I might have been able to, well, I would have been able to help her because I've had to solve all my problems. Like sometimes, for instance, you put a video on your website and you think, oh, this looks nice. Then you go and test it on a mobile phone, and you'll realize that they call it container. So you might find it's not responsive. When you say responsive is like it condenses down naturally, organically between devices. So if it's in a container that is not responsive, where you go on a website. So let's say I've stipulated this pixel size of this video is whatever it is. Let's say I've done it let's say it's 800 pixels wide by something, and it's not responsive. So then I go on my phone, and the phone in its vertical sense, let's say it's only 500 pixels wide, but it's an 800 pixel video wide, and it's not responsive, so it doesn't adapt. That means it's going to go off of your screen on your phone, which means when you're scrolling, it's not going to be a smooth experience. It's going to keep moving out wide and all sorts. So it's not structured. Well, that's not good enough. That's really poor quality, isn't it? So it doesn't, effectively, when we go on a website, we want it to feel like an app, don't we? We want it to feel streamlined. It works. So you get these problems, and you're going to have to figure it out. You know, that's one of the problems you will literally find with this. Even out the box, sometimes you might think, "Oh, I'm going to color code these," and you click the feature set that this software provides. You know, and then it doesn't even change it. You pick a different color, it doesn't even change the color. So you're going to have to know a little bit of coding to be able to add the code to make sure that it actually adds the color. Yeah, so there's little things. Spacing sometimes is a problem. So you're going to have to know the little code to put in to make it so it actually forces a space. In this case, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, you would do, I don't know what you call them. The little, not a tilde, is it? What are them things called? The little, it's like a bracket, but they're the pointy ones. Like a pointy bracket. It's the same, it's the thing you'd use in coding. I don't know what you call them. If someone will know. And I'm pretty sure it's just /BR for break, and then you would close it. Anyway, that would be that. And of course, if you're doing paragraphs, it's the same thing. You've got those little arrows, P, and then an arrow. That's the first part of your paragraph. Then when you finish the paragraph, you do /P in the brackets. It's probably called brackets. And that'll close that paragraph. And then you would start the next paragraph with the same thing, P, in the brackets, and then you'd close it with /P. Was it /? Well, it goes that way. Anyway, that's how you do paragraphing. So let's say you do that, but it doesn't leave a space break between the paragraphs. Well, between each of those paragraph boxes, you'd have to do a line and then do / was it /? I think last time I'm thinking it's /BR, and then the break, and that made a space. But these are things that I know, so I automatically know if I'm doing it and it's not working. Oh, put that code in. And that's obviously a basic one, but there's other ones you can do with like color coding, with font styles, font sizes. Uh, Anyway, I'm boring the shit out of people probably, but I mean, I've learned this over years though, so so that I've done all this. So now I'm noticing on here there's a bit of an issue with a styling problem. It might be a plugin update. It's something I'll have to look at. The play button is hidden for some reason. Either it's missing entirely, or the color is completely blended with this, and I don't really know why. But we can see it says play, so I'm no doubt it still works. It's just, would it work properly is the question. The path of ascension, yeah, so it works, but people can't see the play button. So that's something, when I actually get round to fixing this, if I decide to, is fix the play button. But AO. But anyway, yes, like I say, everything I've done here, color coded, I've embedded these. So these come off the GoFundMe website, so I just embedded them. Looks pretty cool to me. Still got to go and update them now. This one's been going on too long. I'm not sure the legitimateness of it. I just felt really sorry because the picture, but the price keeps going up. I'm not sure of it personally. This wheelchair one, they've already raised it, so let's move on. But yeah, I don't want to go too much about the content, more like how I'm sharing it. So these are all YouTube videos. If you look, I've been just embedding YouTube videos. But this one here, I actually host on my website, my own one on the forklift. Just thought I'd show the jobs of a different side of the jobs I've done, And again, you go full screen here, look. So I thought that for me, that's pretty cool. So again, I learn more on the spot. That training when I forklift doesn't take long to learn on them. You get on them and then you gain the skills as you use them, don't you? And now I'm really good on a forklift, on various forklifts as well. Yeah, and even things like this, look, putting the shading around the back of it just adds a bit of character to it, doesn't it? And then we've got the bottom. And like I say, usually at the bottom you get some sort of like branding, which I have to try and to remove. But that's my personal website that does need updating. I have done pages. I haven't been on this website for ages, like in terms of doing all this. Podcast blog. Blog will be like load of articles, right? Yeah, last one was 2023, so it's interesting. That's how I was doing it. At one point, I was really into that. What's fun facts? I haven't seen that. I might have to get rid of some of this stuff. Fun fact. I think I just wanted to share some stuff about myself. I haven't really updated that in a long time, so God knows what that's about. And this is like me trying to show a timeline of my progress, but I haven't done it in so long, it's not even worth it. Anyway, that's that website. And I just thought, well, I could have helped her really if she wanted to help, but no, I want to learn it from a teacher. This is my gaming one I did. So this is an example of a very basic one I did, though, because it looked better than this in the past. But I deleted the website. Then I wanted to create again, but I didn't have the interest in redoing it all again at a high quality. So it's very basic still, but it's still WordPress created. Yeah, I think this is an example. Designed by Pix a Hive. I don't like all that. So I sometimes go into the coding and then remove it. Because they create the theme, but then I customize it all together, But I haven't really committed. But to show an example, look, this is my gaming. You can make different categories, use different tags and categories in the back end of like in the WordPress. But like for instance, if I've got Gran Turismo 7, I created this review in 2022, so it's 3 years old at this point. But back when I did this review was when there wasn't a lot of content for Gran Turismo 7, so it was a great game, but it just limited. Like once you got to the end, there was no reason to keep playing it, and it was a problem. Now I think it's incredible, but I don't know what I said there. Oh, this is what I've put. Again, this was helping me develop my writing as well, so there's all different things. Gran Turismo 7 is a breath of fresh air in an oversaturated racing genre. I have a racing wheel incompatible with PlayStation consoles, but I don't miss it on this occasion. The PS5's haptic DualSense controller enhances the racing experience beyond even that of a wheel and pedals. Right, that's not true. That might need to fix that because now I have got a wheel for it, and my God, that game with VR and a wheel is outrageous. But no, with the controller though, it's still incredible. It's a great game. But I think if you're looking at the way I've presented this, personally, apart from the side which is a bit bland and the top that's a bit stale, I think this side of it, the information I've done, I've put the console it's on, the date it was reviewed, some publisher information. Maybe that could be a bit more prominent. But I think the blend of the writing with the pictures, I think is as good as any of the websites, to be totally honest. Not, you know what I mean? Like when you, it's just the bottom that needs to be a bit more altered, really, to spruce it up. And I think the sidebar here could be obviously a bit more in depth, but you need content to make it do all that. You know, it's not something I've committed to anymore. But I just wanted to show an example of it as a website. You know, so you know, I know they're basic in their form, but I can't see a teacher creating something of magic in a short space of time. Um, but anyway, so that's that. But then the other side is, of course, if someone wanted to learn uh, other aspects of things, you know, the things I've been through, you know, learning in a classroom, I don't think necessarily going to be. I wouldn't say it's necessarily helpful because it can be, but you know, I think where I am and what I've learned and grown from as nothing has come from a classroom. Nothing has come from a classroom. My ability to write my books has got nothing to do with me learning English at school. Nothing. If you listen to the way when I do my videos, I've done. Let me see if I can get that up. Wait a minute. It would be useful. Let me do that one there. Oh, it's not come up now. That's frustrating. Why is that not coming up? Oh, wait a minute. Let me just change my channel. The clown held a bunch. Listen to where. Like, if you listen to where, I'll get it up so you can see it. But listen to the way I'm doing. So this is my reading channel now because I'm doing reading ones as well. So I've got an aptitude for a lot of things. So by writing, acting my audiobooks, by doing my audiobooks, it got me getting used to reading books out loud, and I started wanting to read other people's. But the point is, at school when I was reading, like if you had to read in front of the class, you would naturally read fast. You don't read it like you're supposed to be telling a story. You read it as fast as you can to get it done. But now I'm reading in a far more, I think, professional manner, and that's all self done. This isn't anything imposed by a teacher. The clown held a bunch of balloons, all colours, like gorgeous ripe fruit in one hand. In the other, he held George's newspaper boat. Want your boat, Georgie? The clown smiled. George smiled back. He couldn't help it. It was the kind of smile you just had to answer. I sure do, he said. The clown laughed. I sure do. That's good. That's very good. How about a balloon? Well, sure. He reached forward and then drew his hand reluctantly back. I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers. If you look at it, I'm not boasting anyway, but I designed all this myself. You know, I've done all these. You know, and again, it's self done. I know how to use like Photoshop to create basic things. I know how to do basic alterations, and I know how to sort of like keep adapting and changing things until I'm happy with the way it looks. Um, I'm just trying to. I'm not again. I'm just trying to show the fact that I learn all this. I do the things myself, and I'm interested in doing that. So I don't think necessarily being in a classroom is always the answer. So I write my books myself. All the video content I do, I've done myself. I'm, you know, the way I've set up my microphone, the way I do the camera, and I do all this work. It's not. None of this is from. I haven't had a classroom. I've not gone to some sort of like had some education on how to present and how to talk on camera, how to do this, how to do that. It's like, this is just me. It's something I've grown over time by myself. It's being self proficient. What I will say is, I wasn't really going to suggest it, but my daughter's going to study psychology at your college. That's something she really wants. She's got a passion for, and some other things, which is interesting because I always felt she would be going somewhere in life that would help people, and it's interesting that she's doing that. But it's interesting she's going to be learning in a classroom. And I recognize a lot of what I do is psychology, philosophy and psychology. But I haven't learned any of that from a teacher. This is literally, I just interpret, analyze myself and grow beyond circumstances. And through that, you know, I understand the deeper aspects of people's really psychology. I don't want to just repeat the word, but I think if people see my content, I think the people would be aware of the depth of what I say and do. And I think if anyone was to read my books, I think they'd be surprised at the depth of them too. And the reality is that that's all from my own interpretation of the world, how I see it, which is where the philosophy comes into it. But then there's also a depth of psychology, and I haven't had a teacher train me in that. So I'm actually skeptical of someone doing that, to be totally honest, because it's a bit like what I say is for people to find their way in life. I like to just show people who they are to a degree. It's like reflect certain things back and just show the corruptions in the world. But then it's for people to establish, the life they want for themselves. I don't think it's necessarily for a teacher to tell you this is a certainty. This is definitely this way. It's definitely that way. And it's like I said at the beginning, my problem with education is how rigid it is. So me personally, if someone offered me the chance to have a psychology course, I wouldn't even want to. I don't want to hear someone force me to interpret the world in the way that they're telling me it has to be. It has to be what? Because someone established that. I mean, if you go back far enough and you look at people with mental health problems, it was seen as acceptable to use electricity to shock people, and for me, it's the same thing. I'm not saying it hasn't developed, and I'm not saying there aren't quality material that people. It's, I'm probably not giving it enough credit, but I do feel that like any education, it evolves over time with more understanding and knowledge. But where does that knowledge come from? It can't come from the classroom, because if it comes from the classroom, it repeats. It's too rigid. So the only breakthroughs can realistically come from life itself. So that's from experiencing in our own way. And then for us to interpret what we're going through and then analyze for ourselves. So I don't personally feel that I need to have a psychologist degree or any of these things, or a teacher tell me, oh, you're good, or you need to improve on this. And it'd be like, that's your interpretation. It really means it's not, no, never mind to me. But look, the difference here with my daughter, for instance, okay, she doesn't want my help with the websites. That's fine. I'm not going to offer to help her with the psychology stuff personally, because she's already rejected the website thing. If she needs help, obviously I'll talk to her. But the thing is, the reason I thought I always knew she'd be good at that anyway, because we've both been through a lot in our lives. And I've always given her insights. I've always told her, even from a younger age, I think I've told her. Sometimes I always thought maybe I'm putting too much on her at a young age. I always felt bad for it, but I was always thinking, you need to know this. But it's made her incredibly observant, and she's able to transmute situations and grow beyond things. And I don't think I necessarily have to hammer anything into her. She already innately knows from the things we've been through already, and I've discussed with her along the way. So I feel she's already bright as it is, and maybe doing like maybe doing certain classes will elevate that, and maybe it'll make her question things that she's being taught. I don't know, but I don't think she necessarily needs me to add any more to the conversation. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if she needs me, I'm here. But what I found curious with that is there may be people who look up to me in the future. I'm not saying they will, and there might be people who they've learned a lot from what I've said. And let's say, for instance, she dismisses any help I try to offer. I just find it curious how people dismiss those closest to them because they put other people on a pedestal when others would have absolutely loved to have had that time with you themselves. I just think sometimes that's what it is. I think sometimes those closest to you don't appreciate maybe what you have to offer. Now, I'm not saying she doesn't respect me or anything like that. But I do find that happens an awful lot to most people. I think that people naturally think that someone more distant from them maybe has something else that they can teach them or something. Is that, I don't know. I don't know about that. But of course, the reality is, if she wants to do, like for instance, I'm not interested in doing like therapy for people. I'm not interested in doing counselling. I recognize I could, but to do those things, you do need a diploma or something. I don't know. You're going to need a doctorate. I don't know what it's called. So you're going to have to do the lessons to do it on a professional level anyway, aren't you? So she would need that anyway. But I'd like to think that she won't lose sight of her own sort of values and perceptions, though, because I think just being robots off of a book like would be crazy to me. That would be mental, to just forgo your own experiences, your own knowledge, your own like interpretation of something because a teacher is adamant that you're wrong. It's like, no, I don't like that. Again, like I said, I've never favoured education like that. It drives me crazy. Yeah. I don't know what else to touch on there. I'm just trying to think if I forgot anything. I don't think I have. I probably have. I probably have. But again, on a look, there's going to be people that are far more developed than me on Photoshop. There's going to be people that are far more developed than me on web design. There's going to be people that are far more developed than me at the video content where they create the overlays. I've recently just added this date and title one to mine. I could add different gradients and colors to it. I may test that later. So at the moment it's white. The reason I've gone with white is because the talk's writing is white, and I just thought, to be honest, I've got a white border around my books. It's probably easy just to go white, you know. But I might test some gradient stuff as well and tamper with it. You see it evolve, perhaps, but then you might not. Because main thing I wanted was the date in the corner, because I'm finding the videos are getting a bit lost as we go. Like, people might watch a video and not realize the date of that video, and then they might watch another one. I think by stamping it, I think that's really good. Bit more work for me, having to make sure it's correct, because I could easily press record and forget, and it'd be like, oh god, it's the wrong date. But yeah, that's something I'm doing. So there's always evolution. It's just that I think some people just lean heavily on teachers to learn, and some of us just prefer to, I think, just learn on the spot as we go, more of a whimsical nature. And I don't think there's anything wrong, personally, in either side. It's a bit, the way I see it, it's like you can have someone who has a gift, they're gifted, you know, they're a musician, they just play the chords, they're great with a guitar, the piano, whatever, and they just know it. It just comes to them naturally. Other people have to learn it, and they know the chords, they know all of it because they've learned it. It's not intuitive to them. They've had to learn it from a teacher. The other person doesn't even know the chord names, you know, but they're just naturally great. So it's just, I find that quite interesting, that if the person doesn't know the chord names, and they would be perceived to be less than or limited, and yet they're the ones that could probably easily write music, or you know, write the chord. You know, they could easily just collaborate with a musician and just work and just create a masterpiece. I'll put it this way: with me, I went through a huge period of school, like literally huge. I didn't have a clue, and I can only put it down to the fact that I must have been off sick. I must have been off sick at some point, because with school they don't often repeat the lesson, do they? And I went through so much of school, even though I was top set of everything. So I started high school bottom set of everything. I don't know why they put me there. By the time I finished school, I was top set of everything, and I still didn't care, and I didn't listen a lot. You know, it was a problem with me. But I had the potential to do incredibly well, but it was just, I was quite immature. But yeah, I went through a lot of school. I didn't have a clue about what verbs were, adverbs, any of it. And every time they mentioned it, I thought, I don't have a clue what anyone's talking about. Genuinely, I just didn't have a clue what they were talking about. It was like, this is just words to me. That's just word jumble. I don't know what you're saying. And yeah, look, I'm going to be honest now. I know what an adverb is, but even if you say it all to me, I still don't. I'd have to take time to pause to try to think, because it's not something that I've been brought up with, you know. And yet, see, some people think that's crazy, and they probably laugh and think, oh, but I don't. It doesn't make me insecure. I wasn't there to learn it for some reason. It was never. It couldn't have been. Otherwise, I would have known. So when it was just randomly, everybody just started saying it. I didn't have a clue. So I must have missed the lesson. And I've not cared enough to truly invest in it. I looked it up a while ago. I can't remember when I looked it up, a few years ago, and I still looked and thought, this is just pointless shit. Effectively, it's breaking down the English language in a way that a teacher can express it to someone, and then it helps you maybe understand how you would structure a sentence. But the reality is, if you can structure a sentence naturally anyway, it doesn't matter what you call it. You know, so I don't really care. Overall, I genuinely don't care. So someone might laugh. Let's say someone wants to ridicule and laugh, and they say, "Oh my god, you don't know what that is." Like, who gives a shit? Sometimes I know. Sometimes I completely forget. Because ultimately, it comes down to a retention of knowledge comes from our interest in it. Well, at least it does with me. I've said it before. If someone tried to teach me about plants and flowers, I'm not going to learn shit because I don't care. So just my mind just go off. And it's the same way if you tried to teach me the structure of the English language, I genuinely couldn't give a shit. Let me write. Just let me write. Leave me alone. You know, and I'd suggest that if anyone read my work, I don't think they would sit there and say that this looks like someone that hasn't grasped certain parts of the English language. It's like, yeah, I'm more of a free spirit. I understand the structure. I understand wasted words. I understand how certain words go together and certain words don't. Um, so breaking it down in a way that it just makes no sense to me. Like, why would I care? Like I say, someone could ridicule me in a way for that, and I could understand that to a degree. But then, okay, some people might understand different facets of how it is done academically. But now put it into practice, and let's see who can write a book. You know, and I'm not doing that to be snooty, but it's like that's the thing, isn't it? Someone could laugh at you for that, but then if they haven't even got a capacity to put it into sort of structure it into a piece of work, so then what's the point of knowing it? It's just pointless. A lot of the shit you learn, for me, is just absolutely pointless. I think you're better off just doing hands-on yourself. Even if you make mistakes, it can be fixed. For instance, I've learnt more when I use Grammarly as an editor. I've learnt more from Grammarly than I learned at any stage of school because it helps you. You know, you don't lean on it all the time. Let's say you're forgetting to put some. Let's say you get a bit sloppy. You don't put enough commas in. You're not breaking your sentences up. You're not. By using Grammarly, it tells you, oh, this should be this way, and you're looking down. No, I like it my way. But then you look a bit careful and you go, yeah, okay. And you do it enough times, it becomes natural. You start to understand, oh, yeah, comma goes in there. I'm going to do this here, you know, colon here, all sorts. It's just natural now when you're writing. It's like, yeah. And you've done that with a bit of assistant. Okay, AI assistance there. That was a little bit there that helped. But I didn't need a classroom or a teacher to explain that in depth to me or anything. But like I say, all my work, everything's been me. So I've learned the web design, and I've learned the different stages of web designs, not just HTML, not just CSS. I'm sure there's another one as well. Can't remember. But yeah, but even the other sides of that, where you can do Drupal and WordPress, it's just different things. And then obviously server administration and things, you know, backing up your websites and all sorts of things. And like I said, even customizing. Of course, there's people who go even way further than I can do. You know, they got. I think you got Python. Is it C++? You've got what's the other ones? JavaScript. There's different things where you go into coding, which is not where I want to go at all. And I would have touched on that in university, but I didn't want to go there. I was like, this is boring as shit. So there's limits to knowledge, I guess, and there's certain things maybe you can learn in the classroom. But the reality is, I think personally, if people attach so much to education being in the classroom, you naturally will find either people can't afford it, they don't have the time for it, or any other reason really. But it'll put people off. So if you think you can't be good enough at something unless you attend a college course, a university course, or you just do anything else, even if it's online course, if you don't feel adequate unless you do that, you're going to hold yourself back. Whereas sometimes I think it's easier. Like, sometimes I'd say it's easier just to get on with it. If you've got like something you want to write, let's say you wanted to write something, just start writing. Just start writing, and you'll get better as you write. Let's say you want to do a website. Okay, start off with a basic WordPress website with a theme, and just start editing it. If you don't know what you're doing, let's say you have a problem, just Google every time you have a problem. How do I color text on WordPress? Something will come up to tell you how to fix that. You start to remember it. It'll start to it'll sit in your memory. You know, it's all those little things that create experience and knowledge. So I'm not saying classrooms are terrible, but I do think there's an awful lot of people that don't operate well in those environments, and it can, I think, stifle people's growth because of it. Because if you think you can only do this because of that, then you're never going to do anything. I do what I do in spite of that shit. You know, I don't want to go in a classroom. I don't want it. I really don't. I don't want to listen. I don't want to follow a curriculum. I don't want to follow a freaking rule book. It's a bit like telling a painter, you know, oh, you need to use this brush and you need to use these oils. It's like, just leave the artist alone. Let them just do what they're doing, and they'll create a masterpiece or something. Or even it doesn't have to be a masterpiece, does it? But it can be great. And you go, doesn't matter how they did it, they did it. I mean, I'm testament to that. You know what I mean? So some people, I didn't like at school. We had nothing. It's like we literally just had basic classrooms. Our IT class was literally um, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I think pretty much it was terrible, but I loved it because I like computers. Um, but nowadays, you see people they've got all sorts of media studies, haven't they? They can learn journalism. They can be on camera and they can test themselves. I haven't had any of that. I've had to do it on the spot in the real world. So, and obviously it's taken time, but you do get better at it. It's a bit like there where like I always, even if my daughter don't want to learn, I'll still give her nudges of wisdom, and I think that's the thing. She learns from me without even meaning to learn, I guess. Um, she was showing me her college application yesterday, and telling me, she goes, "Let me read it to you." She started reading it, and I stopped her straight away. I said, "No, whoa, 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 whoa. But don't rush. If you want someone to listen to it, you need to be able to like read it in a way that they can listen. If you go through it too fast, like you're reading a book at school, I'm not going to be able to follow it. It's going too fast. And take a break when there's a comma. If you've done commas, you need to break the sentences up so people understand what you're saying. So just have confidence when you speak. Because when you speak, the whole point of you speaking is you want someone to hear something. So make sure they can actually hear what you're saying. Because she was also, while she's reading, because you get nervous when it's your own work, don't you? And I'm trying to give her that understanding, be confident what you're saying, delivery. She did improve a little bit, but she still did it. She still rambled through so fast with slight gaps. But I was like, oh man, it's still too quick. But she also kept talking like this with her hand over her mouth while she's talking. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You can't. You're just blocking your words. Makes no sense. Um, and I do understand. Look, she's 15, so confidence is going to be a problem. But you can see it. You can see with people's mannerisms, I think, whether someone's confident or not. Because I was watching her, so she's covering her mouth, and then when I told her that's not good because you're blocking your ability to speak, then she just started playing with the top and things while she's talking. I thought, okay, you're only talking to me. You don't have to be all. Thing. I know, because when she got to the very end, it was brilliant. What she had written was brilliant. There was a couple of bits of if I'm in editing mode, I would have changed, but it weren't worth picking at, and it didn't change the scope of the work. But it was actually incredible, like what she wrote at the end about wanting to help people, see their fulfill their potential and get through their issues and things. But it's the way she said it. I just thought, oh, that's beautiful, man. Love that for you. But so it's a bit frustrating that it didn't have the confidence to deliver it 100%, But it's like at 15, I don't even think I'll be doing that. And I say that to her a lot, where she is at her age. So we have banter. Sometimes she call it banter. Maybe it's truth. I don't know. But I often tell her that she's smarter than me at her age. She's smarter than I was. And then later on, I go, actually, wait a minute, I might be giving you too much credit. I think I was smarter than I just was immature. I actually do think that. I don't want to be rude because I love her to pieces. I don't think she's smarter than I was at that age. I think she's more emotionally mature than I was at that age. Like I said, she's had a bit of trouble at school and things, so that would affect your I guess that's a growth to a degree, but not really because I've spoke to her about so many things, so she might not know. Maybe science she struggles with, maybe this lesson she struggles with, but she might have friends at school who are in terms of education, maybe they are more developed than her on the lessons and the subjects. But she is, and I'm not saying it lightly, she is like far more advanced, emotionally intelligent than they are. So she's almost like the therapist to her friends anyway, And so she's almost like they're 15 years old, which means some kids act like they're 12, so things like that. But she's more like a 15-year-old that's more like in her early 20s, and it's just crazy. It's just so yeah, okay. You might not have the aptitude for that just yet, but you're freaking well advanced over this side. There was something I was going to say with that. Oh, I can't remember now. Yeah, I'm proud of her. She is advancing all the time. So yeah, yeah. There was like I say, it's weighing on me now because there was something I was going to say with that. Yeah. Good. I remember. what frustrates me with education as well is it doesn't actually make sense. And the reason I say that is, for instance, let's say you want to go to, I've said it before, but let's say you want to go, let's say you want to go college and you think, well, even like where she wants to do psychology, let's say she wants to do psychology. What the hell has psychology got to do with the subjects you're doing at school? Like, I never had these opportunities. No one even mentioned any of this stuff at school to me. So I mean, it's great kids nowadays. They know they have got a direction. Um, but let's say she doesn't get the grades at school. Let's say you don't pass geography. Let's say you don't, well, not say pass, but let's say you get low grades in geography, English, maths, science, IT. Oh, I don't know what else you got. I mean, you've got music, drama. What the hell was any of that? I mean, English perhaps to a degree, but what does any of that got to do with psychology? Because I've already established that, in my opinion, emotional intelligence, she's well advanced of anyone she knows. Like even her mum. I'm not trying to be rude, people. She's more emotionally intelligent than her mum. So even more than most adults in her life. So she was, in my opinion, more than qualified to do any psychology lessons at any level. I've got no doubt she would thrive in it, as long as she continues to use her own interpretation and experiences rather than just textbook. But because that's what sets her apart. So I don't understand. So let's say she can't get. Let's say a college refuses. It says she can't do this study until because her grades weren't good, so she'll have to do something else in the interim to get to that. That'd be absolutely ridiculous. Like that's for me, it doesn't make sense. And it's the same if you was to do photography. What does any of the lessons at school have anything to do with photography? And yet the barrier to get into these courses is that you have to attain a certain grade. And that's where I think it's mental. These after lessons are shit. Look at what I'm doing. Let's say I'm writing my books and things. Okay, I would understand English is quite an important topic there. Yeah, okay, English. All the other lessons are absolutely trivial. I don't need science to write what I do. I don't need maths to freaking calculate any of this stuff. I don't need drama. I don't need music. I don't. So that's why I just think school's nonsense. I think, okay, it's good to build knowledge, and that's great. But I don't think you should have. I don't think you should have. I don't think you should have to be assessed based on that. So yeah, I can study music at school. I can do drama. You can do all this shit. But if it's not something I intend to do anything with, I don't see why I should have to be assessed on it. Like, why make that? Why make that freaking something to be calculated? It's stupid. So I think the metrics and things to get into college and be qualified to do this and this is just nonsense. So how the hell can I respect it in that sense when I just think the whole blinging system's a mess? Anyway, that's my opinion on education. Anyway, I know I come across probably a bit unhinged. But yeah, I'm not someone that would do well just sitting in the classroom, just being forced to absorb information that I challenge on a regular basis. Because a lot of time in the classroom, you're not supposed to challenge. You're just supposed to get on with it. And it's like, well, it doesn't seem right to me. Anyway,